All right, everybody, wake 'em, wake 'em. Welcome to Bygone eXhumations #1. Arlen and I are double streaming at the same time. This is episode 1, and we're just gonna shoot the bull about awesome things that we have planned for the future. Totally random and unformatted completely. I did this sweet overlay though. Arlen, so you're
Yeah.
not gonna be able to see it, man. I don't know.
Well, I can pull it up on Twitch
Or you, yeah, another YouTube video. I don't know, man.
or
This
pull up
is
your YouTube or something like that.
Yeah, this is pretty exciting. I don't know how people
Yeah.
are going to decide where to go, but don't worry about it either way. I should
hmm
say straight off that this background is by Clerics Wear Ringmail. Check out his
Oh
blog.
man, Hobbs, your stuff looks great.
You like it?
I'm very impressed, considering that we only talked about this. When was it? At like 5 this afternoon, 4:30.
Yeah,
Um,
I was struck. I was very excited about finding this font and using these colors. So it's pretty dang interesting to me. I don't know. Some maybe
yeah,
old school guys will recognize it. I don't know.
yeah. Fred says it's not fair making the audience choose which to tune into.
Tune
Well,
into
Fred,
both.
yeah, what you should really do is open up Hobbs's Twitch and Hobbs's YouTube and my YouTube and have three versions of basically the same sort of thing going at once.
Yeah, what we need is a better way to
Sort of thing going at once.
both show the same thing, like live stream, the
Yeah.
same, have the exact same screen going to both people. I'm not sure how we would do it.
Yeah, we can. Well, next
Oh, you
time
know
we'll
what?
be
I
more.
know. I know how to do it. I have it. I have it, buddy.
Mhm.
I got it figured out. All
What do
right,
you
man.
got figured out?
How to do it? I'll tell you later. I'll write a note.
Okay. You can tell me later.
So you got some things you want to talk about, or what?
Yeah, I was gonna. So my plan, I did a live stream 2 weeks ago. That was a lot of fun with a couple of people hanging out, and we just sort of talked about what has been going on my YouTube channel. And I thought it'd be fun to talk about what I've got going on, and you can talk about what you've got going on, and we can talk together about the collaborative stuff that we're doing with Libram Society, and just sort of hang out and answer questions, and you know have a good time messing around.
Sounds fantastic to me.
Yeah.
Mm. All right. So what's first?
All right. Well, I get to be the host this time because this was my idea. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask you, what have you been working on RPG wise?
All right. So I have been struck with a strange obsession for turgid sci-fi. It's not a new one. It's been there for a long time, and I've never figured out a way to actually do it. I've been waiting for someone else to run it. So first of all, I should say that tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. I am going to be running or I'm not running. I'm playing a. Is this the one? Yeah, I'm actually playing in a. Oh, I can't find what I'm looking for. Dang it! I just did it. I'm going through all my stuff. I'm playing in Battlelords of the 23rd Century,
Nice.
which I've never played before. Have you played it?
Yeah. I have never played it before. I have the newest, the kickstarted like 7th edition or whatever it is.
That's
I
what we're
have the
playing.
book. Yeah. I have the quick start and the book and like the mission manual, I think is the other book that came with the core rules. So
So I have the quick start. I just downloaded it. I'm showing it
Mhm.
on the at the gamer hood here, and the art looks pretty
Nice.
awesome.
Yeah. It's a D100 system, I think.
I don't know.
And
I don't
it's
know
got
anything
some
about
kind
it.
of. Oh, you don't know any? Oh, well, so I think it's a D100 system. I think it has fairly crunchy shooter combat, basically, that there's
That
a
makes
fair
sense.
bit to, like, hit locations and styles of attack and rates of fire and all that sort of stuff. So, um, and I know what attracted me to that game actually was a little bit of a blurb about it, on
So I
their
think it's a
store
D100
page,
system.
I think, or maybe on the back of the back of the book, the back of the last page of the preview or something like that. That there was a thing about the idea that the kind of elite soldiers of this sci-fi universe would be more like kind of knight errants than like kind of modern professional soldiers in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, that's the
And
impression
I
I
thought
got
that was
too. Maybe
that was
like
kind of like a cool concept.
yeah, well, it kind of reminds me a little bit of kind of what Mech Warrior was supposed to be that I don't think anybody ever did, where it was almost supposed to be old knight's armor that they didn't necessarily know how to work on or fix or anything. Anyway, Che Webster has been running this, and we've been talking about from Roleplay Rescue, and we've been talking about doing a military sci-fi for a very long time. So this is finally going to happen. But that isn't the only thing I was talking about. What I'm specifically working on is my own. Like I said, I want to do some turgid sci-fi, which maybe sounds funny to people, but it's a hard, not quite hard science fiction, so semi-hard, right? And so I tweeted recently 3 different game systems that I may use or put together. The first one, Stars Without
Stars
Number.
Without Number.
Oh dang, this isn't. Let me fix this dang thing quick. Like we said, we just made this quickly.
reversed?
Yeah, Stars
Yep.
Without Number. That's number 1, and then Frontier Space number 2. Which I really
Nice.
like the cover of these books. How they're like a single thing when you put them next to each other.
Yeah, they fit together, the player's handbook and the referee's handbook.
Yeah. Do you have this?
I have PDFs, and
Okay,
I
yeah.
know about DWD Studios. I did one of my most popular videos actually on YouTube is a overview of their Wuxia RPG,
didn't know
which
they
uses
made
a
that.
similar system.
Nice. All right, and then the last one is this Traveler. This is the Mongoose Traveler Second Edition, and this is kind of what I'm most inspired by because I want it to be sort of near future and not far in the future. So I'm going with a little bit 2300 AD, and I wanted it to be maybe like a frontier. I had 2 different ideas, and one of them was like a frontier, starting in the frontier with on a small colony or like a mining expedition or a mining group in the in an asteroid belt or something, and then just see what happens. Hey, Garblag Games is with me, man. Welcome, Garblag Games. So
Nice.
that is one of the things that I am really interested in doing, and I don't even know how to get started, honestly. I read some of the books and then kind of fade away once in a while, but I have another book. I actually have the 2300 AD core book coming. So,
I'm not sure turgid means what you think it means.
are you sure?
I'm looking at the definition right now, and what the definition
Here we
that I
go.
see is swollen and distended or congested.
There's another one.
There's another one.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Oh, wait, I might be thinking of tumescent.
Tumescent. Let's check because the other one I see
No.
is tediously pompous or bombastic.
Oh, well. I thought semi-hard was another word for one of these two. Is another definition.
So tumescent can refer to swollen as a response to sexual arousal. So that would be semi-hard. Hobbs, this is a family show. We try to,
I got you, man. That's good.
Yeah.
It's fine. I understand. I'm known for my innuendo, so
innuendo and your edgy humor. We can't take him anywhere, guys. He's a troublemaker.
Clerics Wear Ringmail's actually here, man. Let me know what you think
Nice.
about that backdrop on the show here.
Yeah. Oh, and Fred Daniel has a comment about Battlelord. Says it's a great gearhead sci-fi warrior fest. Blast 'em.
I think that is the idea. Like I say, I'm not actually running it, so I don't know for sure. But yeah. Anyway, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool stuff.
So what about you,
All
man?
right,
What's going on?
so semi-hard sci-fi, that's your
Mm-hmm.
thing.
That's what I want it to be
What?
because I like the inspirations. The Expanse. Because I'm not really a space opera guy. I'm not a Star Wars guy. I'm not a Star Trek guy. I know about those things. I know what they are. I'm not like hugely involved in their canon or anything like that. But I just like the idea. Oh, I mean, you could also put what Firefly, right? Firefly kind of
Mhm.
is feels like that a little bit.
Yeah. No, that's
Uh,
definitely that's cool. So, we'll get to my stuff in a minute. What is it about that idea that attracts you to it, I guess, is my question. I think that's what we'll do is we'll do sort of tell us about a project and then sort of answer a question about it. That seems like a good format since we're making it up as we go.
all right. Well, we got two questions, yours and one from Cleric's Wearing Mail. Farscape,
All
and I would
right.
say no, not Farscape, because I don't plan on having like a. I don't, and I'm not all that familiar with Farscape, to be honest. It looked a little gonzo for me with all the weird alien species and characters. So um, I'm not thinking Farscape. More probably mostly human in that situation.
Hmm.
And you ask what draws me to it, right? Part
Yes.
that kind of ties into the answer to CWR there. The concept of I find it more relatable. It's the same reason that I like low end or street level supers more than I do maybe some other things as
Hmm.
like super powered things. In the idea that it's more, I just find it easier to comprehend or understand, or the stories that I want to tell are going to fit into that, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want people to have to come up with techno babble to solve problems. I want people to kind of understand what's going on with them and then be able to come up with solutions to the shenanigans that they're involved in that,
Hmm.
make sense, have their own kind of natural explanations that they can do to fit it within the system. Like, I mean, it's easy. Okay, yeah, all we got need to do instead of have to do something with the dilithium crystals, we actually just need some different kind of lubricant, or I don't know. It just, to me, it's easier to do. Mostly probably not lasers and that sort of thing, but slug thrower types,
Hmm.
ballistic things. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm most drawn to in that particular situation.
Cool. Sounds very cool. I cannot wait to as that project progresses, see what you come up with.
Well, thanks, man. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it, and I don't know how fast I'll be because I'll be moving soon, and
Yeah.
but I'm interested in it for sure. But I'm way better at just sitting here talking about it than I am maybe running it or doing the work.
Isn't that always the case?
I think it is, yes.
Yeah. All right. So now we switch hosts, and you get to ask me about what I'm doing, and then ask a question about that.
All right, my man. So tell me about a current project.
All right, a current project. Hello, Crumb. Crumb, I don't remember if Crumb is one of, yeah, Hero's Journey Second Edition. That is exactly what I'm going to talk about. On next Saturday, 6 days from now, I am doing a super special marathon stream of the Hero's Journey Second Edition by James M. Spawn, and it's the I'm using the Hero's Journey Second Edition and the Companion and the Grimoire and of
Ooh.
Beasts Fair and Foul. I think is the book that adds more like talking animal lineages for really weird whimsical stuff that Hobbs is just gonna love. Um, no, but I approached our buddy Kevin Madison, Dungeon Musings, and I sort of said, "Hey, would it be cool if I did a sort of charity thing where what I did was I said, I'm going to run a game and I'm just asking everybody who wants to play to, if they're able to make a donation to his Heroes Save Villages charity campaign. And I think everybody who's playing has had already made a donation or has now, which is awesome. It's totally fine for anybody who that's not financially feasible, or if they have other charities that they prefer to support or anything like that. I tried to be really clear about that I'm very flexible. But the idea is to have 10 hours of streaming, 9 hours of gaming, so three-hour sessions with 30-minute breaks in between. So 3 hours of gaming, 30 minutes of break, 3 hours of gaming, 30 minutes of break, and 3 hours of gaming, starting at noon on Saturday, my time, and ending at 10 p.m., or perhaps a little later if we go long. Who knows if I'm going to have enough energy to go long by that point, but we shall see. I shall stock up on energy drinks and make sure to take all my medicine the week before so that I'm feeling good. And, I think it's going to be really fun. I've got, how many players? I think I've got 6 players for every session now. So, yeah, I've got 6 for the first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for 5 with a maybe for the second one, and 5 with a maybe for the third one. So lots of people signed up to play the Hero's Journey Second Edition, and I have the Hero's Journey Second Edition is based in part on Swords and Wizardry. So I took the Swords and Wizardry Roll20 sheet and have edited it to use the specific. Hero's Journey doesn't use the same Strength, Dex, Con, Int, Wisdom, Charisma stats. It uses Might, Finesse, Resolve, Insight, Bearing, and Wheel. Most of which do fairly similar things to the sort of normal stats, but some of them are a little different. So like Wheel is sort of like Fate, and it gives you a certain number of you can, based on your Wheel stat, you have a certain number of times per day that you can just choose to have advantage on a roll, which is kind of a cool concept to say, like, yeah, this character has, is fated, is destined for great things, and so they get lucky essentially.
So,
Yeah.
you've gone through so many things, and I just have to come up with a question. So, what I'm going to do is cheat and use my own chat from the Gamerhood Twitch from CWR, and he's asking, did you do a character creation during your March Madness character creation effort?
I did. I did a character creation for the Hero's Journey Second Edition, and that's part of what inspired this. Actually, I had so much fun returning to the Hero's Journey Second Edition. I started doing prep for what I thought was going to be a solo game, and then I kind of came up with this idea and thought this would be, even more fun, a really cool thing to do, and support a great cause and all that sort of stuff. Meet all sorts of interesting people that I wouldn't normally get to play with. Sort of like kind of like a digital convention that is just me almost. And so I thought that would be super fun. And 6 days. I've got a lot of prep to do because I have made like 2 or 3 characters and have a bunch more to make. Characters are pretty easy to make in the Hero's Journey Second Edition. You just roll some dice and get some stats, and you spend some fate points if they're higher level. And I had the map made from my prep for the solo game that is going to be the sort of hex map, and I had a fair bit of kind of procedural stuff for the solo game that I've turned into kind of less procedural, but still, I think, very interesting kind of ideas almost that I think will create a kind of varied series of events that the players will go through. And that's a whole lot more than you asked. You just asked if I did March Character Creation Madness on the Hero's Journey Second Edition, and the answer to that is yes. But like I said, that's sort of what that was almost the spark that inspired much of this whole thing.
Yeah, that's awesome though.
Yeah.
So I should say that I have not yet pledged, and I don't have a special
Oh,
reason. I've given something, but
Hobbs.
let's. Well, I know I just haven't decided what it was going to be or how much it should be, and I didn't know what was going on. Blah 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 blah. Lots of reasons, but what
There's
we'll say
there's
is,
if you are up to pledging, if you feel like it's the thing you want to do, that would be great. If you, I mean, obviously, I think most of the people, small enough kind of community between our two streams, know that you've got some real life stuff going on that is, you know, what I'm saying, Hobbs, is you are perfectly welcome in the Hero's Journey game without having donated, because I trust that you'll make good on that when you get a chance and all that sort of stuff.
well, what I am thinking is today is such a cool special show. So,
Mhm.
and I was pretty successful kicking ass in some poker last night for my return to poker.
Mm.
Let us just say I'm stealing your image from your YouTube to put in the gamer hood right now, real quick. I'm so
Nice.
I don't know if it's nice or not, but that's what I'm doing. There we go. There we go. So now you can see Arlen on the show. Not perfect, but it'll do for now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You know.
this is what I got for us, brother. I will send this.
Oh, nice.
I will send this on. Thanks to some local guys playing poker, I'll send 50% of my winnings on to the charity.
Wonderful.
So, there we go.
That's great. Cool. Raising even more money
That's right.
For charity, and that's great stuff.
Yeah, you can't beat it, right?
Yeah. So yeah, Crumb, Hero's Journey is going to be awesome, and Fred, I agree. The long day, it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a lot for everybody, to be honest. Even the people who are playing, some of the people are playing 2 or 3 sessions, which is, 6 or 9 hours of gaming in one day, which is a lot, even if you're playing. I am hoping to have a whole lot more prep done so that I can sort of run it on autopilot as much as I can and preserve my energy for the exciting bits. Not to say that I'm gonna railroad everybody, except for Hobbs, who gets, because he's a troublemaker, so he needs to be kept in line.
Yeah. Did you ever look at that book that I was taking my character from, or no?
The Bard one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I bought a Kindle copy and haven't looked at it at all aside from that. So I'm gonna read it at some point.
I'm pretty excited about that because that was one of
Yeah,
my favorite characters growing up. It fits right into that whole Iron Age, Wolverine, Spider-Man individual doing things, kind of a reluctant hero sort of idea. So I'm pretty.
nice.
It'll be fun.
Yeah,
Not all of my characters are mean and difficult to hang out with. Store isn't that bad, right?
story is mostly fine. He's a little he's got some quirks, shall we say.
Well, everyone should have quirks. I mean, you
Everyone
can't.
should have quirks. Some quirks are easier to deal with than others. Store likes to run into the middle of big fights and get himself into trouble, and then we all have to, pitch in to pull him out of the chaos and things like that. Whereas, I would never, Beargor would never do something like
No,
that.
no,
Of
never.
course.
Of course not.
Never.
Never rush in and be
Never just
surrounded
charge
or-
in and start hacking away at things with no concern for what the other player characters might need to do. But yeah, all right. I think that is everything that I feel like I need to share about the marathon stream next Saturday. And I answered a couple of questions from you. So flipping it back around, Hobbs, what is a project that you are working on? Or you can also talk about something that you finished relatively recently, or that you are not working on anymore because you gave it up, or anything like that. Just sort of what's going on in your RPG hobby and what has been going on recently.
Well, so I had quite a few games that I was running in March, like just a crap, not March, but probably February and January before that. All sorts of games. I mean, I was running White Sands on Tuesday nights. I was running the North March on Thursday nights, which are both OSE games set in my Emergent Empire setting. And then I was playing on Wednesday nights and Friday nights in Kevin Madison's game in the night below. And then I was also playing or running 2 or 3 times during the weekend, including the Chronicle of the Cursed Axe. And then I would fit in some Midlands games and some Kalmata games. So, and that's not including playing in the games that Kevin was also running on the weekends. So it was a pretty massive February, at least. I mean, just like 100 hours that week or something, or that month of playing or running RPGs. And that's a lot. And with the current situation and the transition that I'm going through now, I've kind of slipped a little bit and just put a bunch of stuff on hiatus and trying to figure out what I'm going to do moving forward. I've been going over, like, trying to talk to people and thinking about what I know. I have a whole group of players on Tuesday that is a completely different group that I run on Thursday, which is a completely different group that I run on Sunday. So one of my ideas is to try and combine them into just a massive troop of players, not unlike the roster that Kevin has, and use that to maybe pick one night a week that I'll run, like we've discussed in the past, actually run just like a 4 to 6 session mini campaign and go from, and then just, really dive into that and do a lot of prep and a lot of things for it. And then maybe it'll be a little higher quality and won't be so stressful to prepare for, and something that I can do. And then maybe run more Kalmata or more Midlands or whatever, or one shots and during all the online cons, and just increase that maybe a little less content but a little more quality content. So that's certainly one of my things I have in mind, and I don't know where that's going to fit into this other, my semi-hard science fiction, but I've been working on all those things, so I'm pretty pumped about them. I'm expecting to have a lot more time and energy to devote to getting some actual products out. So working on some of the stuff that I've been trying to get out for quite a while. So what's that sound like?
No, that sounds cool. That's a good, 100 hours in February is a whole lot. Certainly for most people, probably at the point of unsustainable, to be honest. But that's cool. So I will pass on a message from Crumb. Congrats, Hobbs, on the poker win and the donation. That's truly awesome. And I have to agree with Crumb. That's an awesome win and an awesome donation. So my question, if you were to bring back, not based on like the players or the group or anything like that, but specifically based on your kind of hopes for one of the White Sands or the Thursday Justice, right? Was the
North March.
North March. And the Chronicle of the Cursed Axe, which do you think you would bring back first?
That is an excellent question, and it's not easy to figure out. Almost all the games kind of had come to that little chapter in the stories, because they were all concurrent, or what I call serial campaigns as opposed to episodic. The chapters of those serials all had kind of come to a pausing point. So that was that's good. So it kind of feels like that portion of the story is done, but there's definitely a larger portion that we've discussed and prepared for. I have Clerics Wear Ringmail, who is actually in the White Sands game, who I'm certain would like to play some White Sands. That's going to be like a hex crawl turning into, whereas the North March is kind of going to work on play testing one of the adventures I have in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Battleby Ridge.
Nice.
So, man, I don't even know. I have a less work to probably do in the North March. But the question is what I really wanted to do is open it up so I would have a big player pool and then shift it into something. But I almost feel like I should kind of finish off those things. So most likely it'll be, I don't know. I really feel like it should be White Sands, but I'm not positive. I don't know. How do you even decide these things? Random roll?
I have no idea how you decide. I have stacks and stacks of books that need to be read and all sorts of ideas for games, and somehow one of them ends up prepared by the time it's ready to run, and that seems to be enough. Excellent.
All right, so I think it's time for you to talk about another project. What about this group thing that we were doing of the Libram Society plays?
Yeah, let's talk about Libram Society plays. So Hobbs and I, as I'm sure all of you members of the chat, because you are members of the raucous crowd that likes to tune in for the Libram Society, we do a literary live show called the Libram Society on Wednesday nights at 6:30 p.m. Central Time to a little before 8, basically, because then we have to get off and switch over to Night Below. And we talk about fantasy literature and other stuff too, all sorts of different kind of stuff and genre literature in general and all that sort of stuff, and relate it to gaming and dive deep. And particularly what we have been doing is sort of a twofold thing where one week we work on another chunk of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, which is Steven Erickson's 10-book epic
Magnus Opus.
this huge many thousands dedicated to telling this grand story. And then on the other weeks we do short stories and things like that. And we have tried to make it so that those are often related to kind of important things within genre literature, if that makes sense. So like we did a short story by William Morris that William Morris was very influential on a number of the kind of early fantasy writers who then become influential on the next wave and on to the next wave. And so William Morris is special for having been very influential in early fantasy literature as a genre, or what is kind of recognizably fantasy literature compared to, like, you know, the actual medieval literature that is kind of hard to call fantasy because it's sort of something else. It's sort of there's fantastical elements, obviously. I'm getting way off track. What Hobbs and I have also been talking about, in addition to the Libram Society itself, is that we are going to do Libram Society plays, which is actual play content like you would find on both of our channels normally, with the two of us doing things that are playing games that are related to genre literature in particular and things like that. So like I have a sort of hack of a game that I've been working on that is designed to function in a way that is reminiscent of Karl Edward Wagner's Kane stories. So I want to introduce Hobbs to Era, the epic storytelling game, and see what he thinks about this kind of particular form of game. And then we also talked about Solomon Kane, obviously, with Savage Worlds, and we've talked about more other Howardian stuff, and also all sorts of other kind of different sort of things, role playing related to genre literature, essentially. Rather than analyzing genre literature to talk about how we would use it in role playing, do sort of the second step of that, which is actually kind of like playing something based on genre literature and using that as sort of like a real world demonstration of here's how we think you might do, a session of Savage Worlds based on Solomon Kane's stories that captures the feel of Howardian Solomon Kane puritanical adventure, that sort of thing. So that is the Librum Society plays idea that we have got, and we're gonna have to nail down a time and a place at some point. At some point, we will be less busy, and we will figure out some time to do some Librum Society stuff.
What like I'm not even positive I've read Kane. When you were saying Kane, I thought you meant Solomon Kane. I'm not even sure I read Carl Wagner's Kane, so I'll have to put that on my list, and maybe we can find a short story or something to tap into and talk about on
great.
the TLS. And then also, why? I guess I'll actually ask you a question now.
Mm-hmm.
Why Kane, and why Era? Why not, Howard and Conan, or what? Why those particular choices?
So there are a couple of that's sort of two questions, so that's not fair.
Well, it's like a group question, right?
Okay. No, but there are sort of pieces to it. Kane, for me, represents a really sort of fascinating style of storytelling in some ways. By which I mean one of the sort of conceits of the Kane. So part of the idea of Carl Edward Kane is spelled Kane, but he is related to the biblical Cain, Cain, in that he is apparently he is called the first murderer, and he is now like a Lord of the Rings elf in that he doesn't age, and he heals very quickly. He is sort of superhuman in his ability. He's not immortal in the sense that he could still be killed by a sword thrust or a crossbow bolt or something, but he has seen centuries and centuries of civilizations rising and falling, knows all these crazy things, and he is functionally sort of like this immortal.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things about that is that I think it creates a really interesting style of storytelling because it sort of takes away some of the easy solutions for drama and for danger and all these sorts of things. Kane, in one of his stories, there's really no way to tell a story about Kane where Kane dies. Right, because that would break the conceit, because then that's a story where Kane is no longer living as an immortal. And so as we read the Kane stories, Carl Edward Wagner comes up with all these ways to make Kane suffer without having him die or putting him in the sort of danger that would kill him. I think that's really fascinating because, Conan mostly survives dangerous encounters, but he doesn't kind of Howard is not so interested in the idea of Conan being forced to suffer, shall we say, the way that Carl Edward Wagner creates this kind of wonderful, rich quality of Kane's, the mental stress and anguish that he goes through as he survives these incredible things is wonderfully, richly portrayed in the Carl Edward Wagner Kane stories. And I think that's something fascinating. Like the idea of running and to go back to gaming, that's something that really interests me. Like, why can't we run a game where the protagonist, we just put it on the table that one of the rules is the protagonist can't die, but we can do all sorts of horrible other stuff to the protagonist. And as the game master and as the player, we start to come up with all these kind of interesting and inventive ways not to get around that rule, but to create an interesting narrative without breaking that rule, right? That by adding some structure, we create the space for interesting narrative.
So, does that remind you then of, like, say, any of the characters from Malazan or Dorian Gray or any of those? Like, you know who Calor is?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
There's I think a lot of sort of elements of Cain in other stories, and there's a lot of other elements taken for Cain.
You know,
Cain is a much more the sort of tone and theme of those stories is much more gothic, and not gothic as in like vampires, gothic as in like the idea of you know, isolation and suffering, basically, right? That's sort of what, like when they talk about Wuthering Heights and things like that, right? That's kind of the flavor is isolation and suffering, and this sort of way that the world is almost out to get you in a sense. There's no escape from the kind of corrupting influence of the world, and all this kind of other fascinating ideas. And Cain has a lot of that. The other part of your question was why Era. Era is a phenomenally flexible system if you are willing to play by its rules, I think. It is it's super flexible, and I think it really works well for this idea of a powerful, capable character who is not just like, good at swinging a sword, but Karl Edward Wagner's Cain character he's an excellent swordsman, but he's also very learned, and he's very charismatic, and he's kind of a Munchkin character that has too many points that he's been built with, that sort of thing, because he's ancient and he knows all this stuff and he's had time to work on it, and he also heals very quickly, and is massive and brawny and all that sort of stuff, and so he's this kind of and so it's sort of the Cain stories are sort of an exercise in kind of how can we build this sort of like superhuman character and then tear him down over the course of the story and make him suffer for his ambition and all that sort of stuff. And Era works really well for stories like that. That it is, like I said, it's just super, super flexible. And I think one of the ways that it works is with kind of Savage World style die sizes related to abilities. So a more powerful ability is a larger die, which is I think always sort of a cool concept. In person, I don't think that has as much of a tangible benefit as like a dice pool. But especially online, it seems like when you see the larger number on the character sheet, that can feel very, very cool, very, very interesting. And yeah, ultimately, I just think the other reason is that because my sort of first attempt was to do something with Forged in the Dark, because Blades in the Dark as a system, I think works really well for the idea of you're going to succeed, but you're going to suffer for it. And that's sort of what I've been talking about with the Cain stuff. Cain's going to succeed. He's going to survive, but he's going to suffer for it. And it's a sort of a question of how much suffering is he going to get and how much can he take. That I found took a whole lot more work than just tinkering with Era, which was a lot closer to much closer starting point to what I wanted. And therefore I, used Era.
Awesome. So we should get that figured out. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. All right, Mr. Hobbs.
Oh, here, I had something I wanted to show you. So
Yeah?
just for an example, this is my calendar that I use. If you can see this. So this was February. All of
Nice.
the highlighted ones are games that I actually played in.
Wow. That is a lot of games. That is almost every day, every week,
Sometimes twice a day.
times twice a day. Yeah.
So I think that's one of the reasons that I got a little tired in February.
Hmm.
But then when you compare it to March, pretty. I mean, I started out pretty hard, but then everything is just kind of. God, some of them I don't even have things on. So
Hmm.
anyway, I thought that I would put that out. But go ahead. What's next, my man? Bring it to me, brother.
What's next is one of your things, a project that you're working on, something like that.
So I don't know if anyone noticed, but I do have a new just chatting protocol that I'm calling Bygone Exhumations. So BX for short. Uh, we're actually doing it right now. This is episode 1. And for some reason, I found I like making these overlays. I don't know if they all look the same or what. What do you think?
I think it looks good. It's yeah. Bygone Exhumations. It doesn't look like Libram Society. It looks like its own thing, and that's cool.
So yeah, I base Bygone Exhumation. So bring unburying the past. So I like talking about old games, and I like doing things like that. And obviously, it's fun to do the BX. I use the same font as a TSR font, and it kind of looks a like I've seen that font maybe for other things, but I can't think of what. And then I use the red and yellow of Basic from Moldve. And yeah, I just thought it would be an unformatted, totally whatever comes up sort of chatting. So I don't need to go find an industry person to talk about or use my Hobbs and Friends format. Maybe it's just something to get some more content out there and talk about whatever I feel like talking about. And it can get as difficult as any conversation could with anyone or whatever, really. It doesn't have. I just don't, I just feel like it's a wide open idea. Like sometimes when I'm running games, the more they run, the more narrow the game becomes, or your options, or what you're doing. And eventually it's like writing. You can almost write yourself into a corner where you're not sure on where you want to go or how you want to do it. But by doing it this way and kind of just releasing all of that stress that would exist in having the outline done, having, getting all the people set up. Now I can just ask my players or just talk myself, or basically we can double stream to our shows at the same time or whatever. It's just like a real simple chat, real live conversation. So I'm pretty
Hmm.
excited about it. I tend to, my nature is to fall in love quickly, and I'm kind of in love with the idea.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's great.
No
No, I think it's
questions?
really cool. And we sort of put this idea together, over the course of an hour or two, basically, of discussion back and forth on Discord, without a whole lot of kind of firm plans. Um, I think we just sort of said, I sort of said, "Hey Hobbs, I'm going to do a stream. Do you want to be a part of it?" And Hobbs was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do this thing." And we've kind of we got the ball rolling. The first episode of Bygone Exhumation.
Yeah, we BX for short.
BX. BX. That's not going to be confusing.
Well, I hope not.
Hope not. Yeah.
If it is, tough noogies.
It's yeah. All right. A question about Bygone Exhumation.
It's gonna be a
All
tough
right, so
one
you
for you.
talked about the idea of talking about old games. Um,
It
what
doesn't have
is
to be old games either. I should say
okay?
it could be anything.
An old or a new game, something other than the semi-hard sci-fi, something other than OSE or BX itself, something that a game that you enjoy or that you're interested in or that you want to tell us about.
So I have also, for anyone who listens to any of my stuff, Random Screed specifically, I've been talking about writing different games, and one of them was most certainly a Western game that I called Good Intentions for a long time. And I saw when I saw that you were looking at Western Hero, I was so surprised because I have Western Hero third edition, I think, and I've been a hero system guy for
Mm-hmm.
that's what I did the whole time in the end of second edition and completely throughout third and fourth edition D&D. I didn't touch any of those games. I was solely running hero system games or playing them. So I'm pretty familiar with it, but and I'm kind of stumped that you're not using Hero Designer, by the way. But
I'm not using Hero Designer. I'm doing like half the math in my head.
I mean, and it's not that terrible,
It's
honestly.
not that terrible. No, it's just like
No.
addition.
Yeah, it's just like there's fractions, and but
Yeah.
it's usually like a quarter or a half. But it can get get a little.
And it's a lot easier to do with Western Hero. You're not building any powers for your characters, so it's a lot more like
The thing is about that, you could shift into powers when you're like going to add auto fire onto fanning the hammer, or but maybe
Yeah.
it's already in '88 that we called shootout.
Nice.
Which, I know you would be interested in mechanics probably. Really, what it started as is I used to have the boxed set of Boot Hill, the original one, and it was a game that like my dad would kind of run, but it was usually like a few people would be uh, the townsfolk, and a few people would be the guys trying to rob the place. And we put that big map out. I don't know if you've ever seen the big Boot Hill map, but it folded out like a big western town, and then you use little chits, and then you did it. You played the game and you moved around. So in many ways, it was kind of like a miniature war game, but it was in a western, straight western setting. So that I basically tried to rewrite Boot Hill from memory, and we had started to play a little bit of Middle Earth role playing, and I don't know, it got really crazy because we wanted to have a speed factor, which we like used roll 20 for your speed, and then it usually mostly hit, like, I mean, we made it from scratch, but it was all written on like the back of credit card receipts because I was working at a gas station then, and it was like when no one was around, that's what I would be writing on, and my buddy would come in, and then each weapon had its own ranges with its own things there were like 50 different statistics on the range and then how it would affect, and it was insane. But I mean, it was playable for us. I think like 3 or 4 years later, my brother actually tried to collate all the information and make it into a way that other people could play it, and we'd have 10 people at the table playing shootout, in the early middle 90s maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in a western game as well, I guess, is where I'm at. I think
All
I would
right.
probably get Hero Designer if I was going to mess with it, but I had no idea that they did. Is it called Complete Western Hero? Because isn't that the kind of the books that they're doing for sixth edition now?
Yes, there's Aliens and there's Complete Fantasy Hero. This one is just called Western Hero,
Hmm.
but in the description it says it's all you need to play
Just like
the
the others
game.
do.
And I sort of talked with, and this is actually a project that I'm going to be doing.
See
this
how I
coming
did
week.
that? I turned it on you, brother.
A sort of small project. So for those of you who are in the same discords as us, basically last night I got Western Hero for 6th edition and did a lot of sort of reading of it and tinkering with building a character and doing some sort of test stuff with it, and ended up writing up a fairly substantial kind of thing about my sort of experience with this book, partly from the related to the idea that I'm not a hero system guy, honestly. I have played like 10 hours or so of Champions, because there was the 4 2-hour sessions of Dead Winter and the one kind of combat test that we did before that to teach so that Kevin could teach me and John how to play the system, which was fun. But I didn't build a character. I just played a pre-built kind of Iron Man style character in that game. So it was very different trying to create a Western hero for Western Hero. That took somewhere in I think I didn't work on it constantly, doing it as fast as I could, but I spent a good, hour and a half on, tinkering and adding stuff up and kind of trying to decide what looked cool, and going back through and rereading sections of the book and saying, oh, that looks like something that could be neat and could kind of come up in an interesting way in the game. So I spent a good amount of time on it. And to be fair, I ended up I was counting points for the first hour and 10 minutes or so, and in the last 20 minutes I got to the point where I was like, I'm just going to add cool stuff to this character and make him into a superhuman badass, and he's going to be able to gun down hordes of bandits and all that sort of stuff, because I think that would be fun for a character to just kind of mess around with it.
I'd be curious to see how you built did you build some of those things as powers, or does it I probably know more about Hero System than you do, I guess, but probably. I don't necessarily know it in the terms that I could just talk to you easily. So like you could build an area effect power that really would replicate, fanning, or even like a rifleman kind of idea. If you watch the old Rifleman show, you could build it as an area effect attack, only that it's selective, and you could do a lot of things like that without making it be. Is that what you did, or is that not in the rules? Or
there is no powers section of the 6th edition Western Hero book.
Interesting.
So the only thing I did powers for essentially was on the Roll20 sheet. That's how I built my weapons, basically, is that you put in the weapon as a power, and then when you click on it, it rolls it automatically for you on the Roll20 sheet.
So that's pretty
interesting. But the
weapons
are all pre-built for you and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting that they did it that way. I'm going to have to get that book, although I was a little disappointed to hear that the production maybe wasn't as good as it could be.
Production value is not quite where it could be. Unfortunately, there's a number of just kind of issues that it seems like an editor could have caught that would make it feel more polished. And I sort of got into, after I sort of talked on my Discord posts, after I talked about these kind of like production issues, I started talking about the idea that even aside from all that, it is fairly hostile is too strong, but it is not a very welcoming presentation of the system for somebody who doesn't know Hero.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like that was sort of too bad, because it seems like in some ways, it's a good place to start Hero, because Western heroes, they just need to be able to, draw their pistol quick and aim it and shoot, as opposed to a champion's character who needs to be able to like build a whole superpower with a certain number of points and with the right kind of limitations and all that sort of stuff to function. And obviously Champions has lots and lots of templates that you can use and all that sort of stuff to make it much easier to build things. Anyway, I said sort of 2 core things about the book that I thought would make it much more friendly as presentation. One was that after the introduction, they should go through all of the core mechanics of the system. Basically say, this is how stat rolls work, 3d6 under 9 plus stat divided by 5. This is how skill rolls work, 3d6 under the skill rating. This is how combat rolls work, OCV plus 11 minus 3d6 equals the DCV you hit. And you could have essentially just 4 pages of that with a worked example each time, and basically say, this is what you need to know to run this game after you're done with character creation, because it really, I mean, there's some other, complicated stuff in there if you want to end up, doing some of the more complicated trick shots and fanning the hammer and all that sort of stuff. But really, at its core, it's roll 3d6, roll under whatever you are, trying to roll under.
That's interesting that you say that, man. Yeah, body and stun and the differences there. I have Fantasy Hero Complete and Champions Complete. I should look at those and see, or and Fantasy Hero Complete. I have all three of those, I think. I should look to see if that's what they did in those. I don't know if they're written by the same person.
I
It
don't think
almost
they
sounds
were.
like a whole. It almost sounds like a whole other BX session.
Well, and this is kind of an odd one because my based on what is written in the kind of acknowledgments, it sounds like Fantasy Hero Fourth was written by somebody other than this author, Chris
Oh yeah, I'm
Taylor, I think,
sure. I'm sure that
and
when
that
you
he's sort of
go back in
adapting all of that
editions,
sort of stuff. Somebody else's material that he's adapting into.
yeah,
Um,
all the editions were written by different people, and I mean, a
yeah,
different company owned them during the fourth edition era.
yeah,
Yeah,
and not
so
not surprising, but that specifically that I think maybe speaks to some of the issues that came up is that there's just stuff that didn't get
that's just poor production, like you say. I mean,
yeah.
it's a super awesome idea, and the cool things that you can do in a Western hero game, especially if you're gonna tap into some other genres, be them horror or fantasy or whatever. You can really do some cool things just by the way that hero system works.
Yeah. Well, and there's some really good stuff. And to be fair to the book, one of the things I was talking with Kevin a little bit before the Deadlands session about it, and one of the things that I think is cool, my impression of Hero and its community is that it is very dogmatic in a lot of ways, that you kind of have to play the rules as they are written so that everybody's character works because they've built the characters based on how the rules are written and all that sort of stuff. You can't fudge things. You can't, say, oh, that skill is going to cost twice as much because I think it's overpowered. You can't do any of that. That's
Well,
not the way the community really.
you can. I mean, I was a member of the Hero Games forum for
Mhm.
years. I mean, that's where I met some of the people that I still game with today on the Hero Central, which was a play-by-post, pretty much dedicated to Hero System. And there's some things that you can do, and there are areas on the Hero Games forum that you can do that. Now, is that how many of those people are in the Discord? I don't know. But I know
Well,
that there were some great people who discussed and were always talking about tweaking. Because I mean, that forum was really happening around when fifth edition first
mhm,
came out. Really, is when I started to get into it. Because I started with the Big Blue Book, the BBB, which is fourth edition. That's when I
mhm,
started playing, and it was specifically champions. And I didn't really start doing any fantasy hero stuff until fifth or fiver, which was fifth edition revised, that came out fairly later, all by Steve Long. And
mhm.
there was a lot of discussion, but the concept of the game is these are the building blocks and do whatever you want after that. Really,
Yeah.
that is really the concept of the game. And
Well, and that's
go ahead.
that's sort of what I was going to say is that I felt like my expectations were pleasantly shifted a little bit because I felt like this Western Hero book does a really good job of, you know, here's sort of the core rules. Here's how it works in sixth edition rules is written. And then here's like options you can do to tweak with it, right? You want a more cinematic experience. You don't want to use hit locations because you think that slows the game down. You want to, not use endurance and just have everything pull from stun so that you don't have this larger pool for all that sort of stuff. You want to, just add one of the things I thought would be really cool after I was looking at it, that there's a talent that ups the damage of weapons in particular situations. And one of the things I thought was, oh, you could essentially say this is basically say that every kind of pistol or rifle or whatever gets this, every character gets this bonus for their core weapon on the first shot of a shootout after a standoff, and that would feel very much like the kind of cinematic feel of that first shot is the one that gets you, and just make that free for everybody. Just say that that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
sort of conceits of the particular campaign, and that would be really cool. And you're sort of using a building block that already exists within the system.
Mm-hmm.
to create a different flavor based on what you're going for, which I think is really neat.
Yeah, and just to expand on that, if you compare Western role playing games to other games, and a lot of times they have armor or whatever, and Hero System has an armor because fundamentally it's just armor, but when you add your special effects on it, it could just be that you're lucky and the armor is just that one shot, just barely, you're just sticking your head out and it's hitting next to the wall next to you and chipping off stuff because it's not really, it doesn't have to be as abstract. Combat doesn't have to be as abstract in the Hero System because everything is delineated through the fundamental blocks that the system is built on, and it's just special effects that you add on. So everyone can pretty much have armor,
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
it's a cool game. I mean
yeah.
I've always
No,
been a fan, but I want to be able to run stuff and make it up as I go, and that's not a game that you can really do that with when you're talking about opponents and everything else. But if you have the time, and I mean another idea is the concept that making and designing characters and scenarios and opponents or foils for the PCs is playing, right?
Mhm.
So it's a cool concept. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the Hero System. I just don't have time for it at this point in
Yeah.
my life.
Well, so the things I said about the book is that it would be really nice if it had a core mechanics system section right at the beginning and basically said this is the stuff to keep in mind, partly as a way to make it much easier to digest what all of the, because it goes right into character creation. And for somebody who doesn't really know the system very well, it means that you kind of have to read through the whole character creation section and then read it again to understand what you read,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And then the other thing I said was there's a section near the end that is a long list of like a paragraph or two of kind of scenarios. The paragraph or two long scenarios of like, here's something you could run for your players. And I was like, okay, that's cool. But I think I'd be fine with that not in the core book and maybe as like a downloadable extra on their website and to use that space for something else. And what I came up with that I felt like would be really useful, I think, for new GMs and players is that you could have the same character built on different point values to talk about how you built the character each time and what the character built at that level means for the fiction, the story that you're telling, all that stuff. So have a cowboy built on 100 points and it's got like, 8 or less on almost all of his skills and 10 or less on riding, and say like he's only really going to succeed 25% of the time on most of these skills. So he's not going to be able to suffer from pretty serious penalties. But then you build that sort of similar kind of character with 150 points and you say, all right, look, this is sort of the things that we added to that character to make them to fill out another 50 points worth of stuff. And then here's what that means for the fiction, right? Now his writing is a 12 or less. And so he's going to succeed at writing checks a whole lot more often than that 10 or less. He's able to ride around in combat much more effectively, that sort of thing. And then do it for 200 points. And then do it for 250 points and have sort of the whole, because the book sort of says like this is a whole, in the GM section, it kind of talks about this idea of tries to explain sort of in fictional terms what these points values mean, but I don't think it does a very good job of connecting the numbers to the fiction. And it would be really cool to see that. So I have decided to put my money where my mouth is and create something like that for people who are interested in Western Hero. So over the course of the next week, I'm going to do 4 episodes on my YouTube channel, and they're going to be Monday at noon, Tuesday at noon, Wednesday at noon, Thursday at noon. And Monday at noon is a 100-point cowboy, and I'm going to build him live on the episode and talk about my decisions as I do it. And I'm not an expert in hero systems, so I'm sure there will be minor mistakes and all that sort of stuff. But I think I've got it down enough that I can actually sort of talk meaningfully about some of these decisions and about the sort of fiction that this character lends himself to. And then on Tuesday, it's the 150 point character. So we take that 100 point character that I built and we add another 50 points worth of oomph to him. And then on Wednesday, it's the 200 point character. And then on Thursday, it is the 250 point character. And the idea is that hopefully anybody who, like me, was sort of lost originally as to what these kind of characters are actually kind of supposed to do and able to do and all that sort of stuff can come to my YouTube channel, and I'll put links on like the Hero Discord and some of the other Discords that I'm on and all that sort of stuff. And who knows how many people will actually see it. But I felt like that was a good I'm really trying to, be a positive force within the community, trying to, when there's a criticism or something that I want to see, if there's something that I feel like needs to be done, just, be the one to do it almost. And that's sort of what I'm going for, is that, I feel like that's a flaw of this book, and there's a sort of space for somebody to fix that. And so why not me, basically?
That's
so
right.
That is the project.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
I'm totally lost on whose question that was and who was talking about their project.
Yeah, I don't remember either, honestly. We sort of got into Western Hero and talked about all sorts of stuff and had a great time chatting about it, and have gone totally off script, and we didn't even have a script to begin with.
It's the best time to off. That's the best kind of off scripting, I say.
Exactly.
So now what? Are we good? Are we done? What's the plan?
I don't know. Do you have any more to share with projects wise, ideas wise, hobby wise?
I'm not sure. Let me see. I have some things I think I want to talk about, but I may save them for the future. I mean, we talked about my semi-hard science fiction, my plans for what games I'm going to run, and then the Libram Society and Western Hero. So I think that mostly wraps up the things I'm working on, depending on how deeply we want to get into any of it. It was, you had mentioned a whimsical fairy tale type of hex crawl. Is that for the hero's journey, or is that for something else?
Yeah, that was sort of the first the charity marathon.
Okay, and I wondered if it was so.
There's still a little bit of kind of whimsical light stuff, but it's become a lot less, obviously, with the kind of focus of the marathon. It's the original idea was to have it be very, very procedural with a lot of that sort of stuff, and that is hard to do on the time crunch, right? It's hard to have like roll for random encounters, and you might get 4 random encounters over the course of the trip, and you might get 0, and great for a long-term campaign where you want that emergence, but harder for a one-shot where if you're going to roll live. I could, roll ahead of time and use that to plan out the sessions and all that sort of stuff, but I decided against that, put my thumb on the scale, turned away from procedure, and decided to craft sort of my own.
Yeah, I understand. You wanted a railroad instead of emergent story, but exactly. I can tell you from experience that you're correct. One is easier. One is a lot more impromptu stuff, especially if you're like using maps and stuff online. But I have ran Kalmata as a con game, not an online con game, but this is back in the days of old, the times of high adventure, when we were actually together and rolling dice at conventions. I have ran Kalmata in that thing, and even then I did some sorts of narrowing the scope where it wasn't like, hey, you can go anywhere you want on Kalmata. They were all mostly new characters, and so all they really had was the rumors, and then I hand-picked those rumors to be very specific places. But I did do all the random rolls during the session and all that. So, and it used up quite a bit of time. It does anyway, but it can be done, and the procedures I think it's something that you'd want to learn ahead of time and be pretty familiar with exactly how you were going to do it. But it can be done, and it can be a ton of fun, and it can make you work some different muscles as a GM. So if you ever consider it, and you want to talk about it, I would love to.
I totally believe that you come out of that way, and I think it would be fun. I am really interested in kind of taking the sort of work that I did on the procedural stuff and turning that into something else procedural, almost. The next big campaign that I run or something like that. To take what I've learned from just tinkering with random tables and coming up with ideas for creating emergent story and doing that. But for the charity marathon, I think I have more of kind of I think of it less as a railroad necessarily, and more of kind of specific sort of thematic beats, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
So like, it doesn't matter where the characters are as long as experiencing something close to what I had kind of in mind. Not like a Quantum Ogre where like, oh, wherever you thing. More like, if this is supposed to be a kind of like Dire Straits combat moment, it doesn't matter where we are in the world, as long as we're having Dire Straits combat that feels like that. We can sort of go anywhere and feel like that's what's emerging from the kind of player's choices and all that sort of stuff. So that's sort of that's kind of how I'm building the plan for the charity marathon, is kind of, and that's a lot of the ways that that's often how I plan, is sort of like, what do I want the feel or the tone or the theme of this moment to be, and then I sort of come up with stuff like, here's things that could work for that, and then kind of eventually have like a whole bunch of different kind of stuff available and kind of a rough sort of outline of like, okay, we go from kind of this note to this note to this note to this note, and here's all the different ways we could do that, and here's all of the different kind of ways we could tweak that based on what the characters are into and what they're not, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting stuff, I think. I'm looking forward to it. I'm a little concerned I may have to work and be a little late for the first session, but I do plan on playing in all of them. It'll be fun. You got a pretty good group of people. So
yeah, I think it's going to be good, and I'm excited to.
I really love that character that I want to replay, so I'm curious to see how you do it.
I have not built your character yet. I think I built 2 characters. One of them is George's Wizard, because that was pretty easy. He's only going to be in one, and it's going to be the last one. So I was just like, I'm just going to build a crazy powerful wizard who can do all sorts of wild shit. And then the other is somebody else's. I built a halfling burglar, because that was the request. And
is it Jonathan?
It is not Jonathan.
Oh, it's probably Kevin, that son of a biscuit.
It's not Kevin. No, Kevin talked about either a support class, because he loves playing support, or a skin changer that turns into a wolf. So
we'll see that's right. I saw that.
What I come up with for him, if he gets the skin changer that turns into a wolf, I'm sure that would make him happy. I'm not sure how everything is going to fit together. There aren't really any kind of like pure healer classes or pure support classes in the Hero's Journey 2nd Edition.
Those are overrated anyway.
There's some bits and pieces that kind of fit with that. So anyway, we'll see how things work out. Where were we? We were talking about your plans and ideas and how you are talk about on this live stream, I think.
On BX?
Well, for today.
Oh no, I think I'm good. I think I'm ready to wrap it up. An hour and 19 minutes seems about perfect.
Ready to wrap it up? Awesome. Do I have anything else I want to share? Oh, well, so I will share the last thing. In addition to my YouTube series that is on Western Hero this week, I'm doing another YouTube series that is less structured and more kind of whenever I feel like there's a spot open for me to do some stuff with. Let me move. I've got stuff on the book, so I can slide it off with this bad boy, the Riddle of Steel. Hopefully you can actually see it and not covered in glare. I know it's covering my face right now, but it's okay because you can see the book. The Riddle of Steel is a game from 2002. It is something that has held a space in my mind ever since I first read it, and I reread it again recently while I was house sitting for my parents, and it was like, oh man, I got to do something about this game and some of the other games like it. So I'm doing a deep dive, kind of short, punchy episodes about one element of this game, or Blade of the Iron Throne, or Song of Swords, or Sword and Scoundrel, or Burning Wheel, all these different games that have kind of elements that are shared with the Riddle of Steel. But 15-minute videos max, and just kind of talk about like one element, and hopefully there will be a bunch of these videos eventually, and people can go like, oh, I want to hear about like spiritual attributes, and so hear me talk for 10 minutes about spiritual attributes in the Riddle of Steel and how they work, and hopefully that inspires them with their own game. So yeah, and then I talked to you, Hobbs, a little bit about doing a Riddle one shot at one point. I've been talking.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I've been talking with Runeslinger Anthony on Twitter, and we're working on figuring out a time. He's in Korea, but he has a series on his YouTube about the Riddle of Steel that is actually how I discovered his YouTube channel way back when. And so I was like, hey man, have you ever actually gotten to? No, but I want to. And I was like, oh, have I got an opportunity for you? So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to find a time that works for him. I talked to our buddy George Straighton because he's in Pacific time, and he is very often much more free late evening just because of his schedule after his son goes to bed, and he can have some free time, is my understanding. And of course, it would need to be late for Runeslinger, so that it would be early morning for him, basically late evening for us. So yeah, a one shot of the Steel might be works also.
Nice, let's do it.
Yeah,
is it Runeslinger or Runeslinger?
I think he originally wanted it to be Runeslinger, and then everybody called it Runeslinger, and so now he just says Runeslinger. He also has I think his blog and his anchor podcast, Casting Shadows, and he's a really cool guy. Does both actual plays and kind of really thoughtful system discussions and stuff like that. He was part of a Google Plus group about learning RPGs and teaching people RPGs, and so he's got a lot of videos that are sort of the part of the learning RPGs group or whatever it's called. So it'll be, and I've never gotten to actually play with him. We've interacted a little bit on Twitter, and that's about it. So it would be cool to get him, and obviously my best buddy Jason Hobbs. How could I forget him? It would be great to have him in the Riddle of Steel game, and we'll figure that out. And George, it'd be fun to have George, and we'll figure out a way to kind of merge it all together. And 3 players would be probably, I think, the best. It's not hugely complicated, but it does have a couple of moving parts. And I think 3 players would be best for a party, rather than trying to, have, like with the Hero's Journey, having 6 is going to be just fine because it's so straightforward. I can just say, like, what do you want to do it, and just roll the dice. But Riddle of Steel, you have to be like, oh, I'm going to, attack this way with this many dice, and roll off and see if you hit them, or all that sort of stuff. So it's a little more.
I kind of remember it, so I could definitely see the more players making it. But didn't you have a bunch when you were running Sword and Scoundrel?
No, I only had 3.
Oh, okay. So that
worked really well. So I feel like Riddle of Steel, the Riddle-like games, Sword and Scoundrel and Song of Swords and Blade of the Iron Throne, all have some. One of the big things that they all did is they all created a kind of true core mechanic instead of the Riddle of Steel, which has sort of several different versions of dice pools that are all kind of similar, but it's not really like here's one mechanic that everything we do is this way, which I think is going to make the Riddle of Steel a little bit funkier to teach in some ways. But I think with a bit of explanation, I think it should be good.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. So that is my projects and all of that sort of stuff, and we got to both share our stuff. And you created Bygone eXhumation for all this. Good.
Real good. Thanks for inviting me. I enjoyed it. So I'm not sure how we sign off. Do we just do it all at one time, like goodbye, or is there something else we do?
I think what we do is that I guess we say some version of kind of like Hobbs, where can people find you if they're interested in interacting with you more?
Well, I hope you can see me at Twitch. You can contact me at my YouTube channel or the Gamerhood Discord. Easy enough to contact me at my email, hnfhobbs@gmail.com, or on the Twitters at OSRN Hobbs. How about yourself, sir?
I am, let's see, I'm a bunch of places. I am on a couple of different Discord servers. I usually leave a link to the Dungeon Musings Discord server in these sorts of videos because that's kind of my home base. So if you get on Discord and get to that server and type at Arlen Walker, I will show up. If you go on Twitter and do at Pelham Wasteland, I will also hear that. My email address is my personal email address. So, and I am, let's see, I'm on anchor.fm/Pelham's Wasteland. And the YouTube channel, obviously youtube.com, /c/live from Pelham's Wasteland. I think, whatever, you can search live from Pelham's Wasteland on YouTube and you'll find it. Nobody has a weird name like mine. And leave a comment, leave a like, all of that sort of stuff, and I will get back to you if you do that.
Awesome. Right. Thanks again, Arlen. I found some music I'm going to kick off, so I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to sign out.
All right.
Thank you very much, sir.
To say goodbye to my stream, and I guess we'll get back to once we're both done. Yeah.
All right, man.
All right.
I said good day.
All right. Oh, and I should mute myself in Discord.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking of, too. We should mute ourselves in Discord. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for the first episode of whatever I called this thing. Oh, yeah. Bygone eXhumations. I appreciate it. It was really awesome having the people who stopped in. We had Clerics Well Ringmail, Garblag Games, Brian in the Bunker, James Richards, and all the people that were at live from Pelham's Wasteland. Thank you so much. Until next time, I leave you with this awesome music from my man, TJ Drennan.